And I don't want another child to lose their life. I don't want another family to have to go through what I have to go through.
From a mother's anguish to a community shock. Takoda Collins' death has touched a nerve across the Miami Valley. Prosecutors say the 10-year-old died after his dad tortured and abused him for years, as his fiancée and her sister did nothing to stop him. Tonight, a joint I-Team Dayton Daily News investigation uncovers new information, the possibly missed opportunities to save the 10-year-old in the system responsible for protecting children in danger.
I don't think Dayton Police obviously did everything they could in their purview, but now the question needs to be broader.
And what's being done to prevent what many say was a preventable death from happening again?
No mother should have to have a memorial service for their child.
By now, so many of us know there were multiple red flags reported before Takoda Collins died. But for the first time, an I-Team Dayton Daily News investigation is uncovering records that show 1934 Kensington Drive, the home where Takoda Collins spent the final moments of his life, was more well known to law enforcement than we previously knew. Over 3.5 years, law enforcement was at the home more than 10 times. That includes a February 2016 welfare check after Children's Services reports Takoda's older brother has a black eye. No one was at home. But a Children's Services worker tells police when McLean's home, he never allows them to check conditions. Police also responded to Hines' multiple calls for help with McLean, including her, quote, crying hysterically, saying he'd hit her and refused to leave. 2 years later, a series of 4 calls start specifically about Takoda. Starting in May of 2018, police attempt a welfare check prompted after a Dayton Public Schools worker and Children's Services staff report child abuse concerns, but no one answers at the home. 6 months after McLean had pulled Takoda from school, Dayton police put the then 9-year-old in the back of a cruiser. McLean and Hines said they wanted an unruly Takoda taken to juvenile detention, but then changed their minds, saying they wanted to take him to Kettering Medical Center for a behavioral analysis. In May 2019, DPD does another welfare check after his mom calls the Montgomery County Regional Dispatch Center.
But I believe that his father is abusing him and hurting him, and that he's too scared to tell anybody because his father won't let him talk to anybody. He pulled him out of school.
Dispatch records show after that call, police believed Takoda was being cared for. 7 months later, on December 13th, DPD's final response after McLean's 911 call.
Yes, my son is unresponsive right now.
Within hours, Takoda Collins was dead. Prosecutors say after years of his father's daily physical abuse, held naked and restrained in the attic, shortly before he died, McLean raped him.
You ever think about his last moments as a mom?
I do. Like, was he just, was he asking for somebody to help him? Was he saying, please don't stop? Like, I don't know what he went through. It's hard for me to imagine.
The end of Takoda Collins' story is unfathomable for his mom, Robin Collins. Long before he came to Ohio, the tumultuous times in Takoda's short life started where he was born, in Wisconsin. Right before his first birthday, court records show Robin Collins was sentenced to probation for hitting Takoda. Later, she lost custody by using drugs. That probation violation landed her in prison. Robin Collins tells me she wanted her family to get custody, but Takoda ended up in foster care instead.
My family, me, we all failed him. We have to take some of that responsibility. As his mother, I have to take that responsibility. I feel guilty as hell.
Why do you feel guilty?
That I never got off the drugs to get him back. That I didn't get my together in time to save him.
While Robin Collins was in prison 7 years before her son's death, Takoda's dad was building a violent criminal history in Wisconsin. Al McLean pleaded guilty to charges related to choking out a stranger because he thought the guy stole his phone. And an officer and a witness also accused McLean of attacking his fiancée, Amanda Hines, in Wisconsin. Again, Amanda Hines is now facing charges herself related to Takoda's child abuse. The Wisconsin charges were dropped after Hines denied being a victim, but court records show the officer and a witness saying McLean hit Hines over the head with a pipe, drug her by her hair to a car, and punched her just before driving away. Just 3 days before that incident, McLean had been granted sole custody of Takoda. But with that violent history, how was Al McLean eventually able to move away from Wisconsin and take Takoda with him? The I-Team just obtained records that provide context. Days after the court gave McLean custody, Robin started a year-long fight, asking a Wisconsin judge to prevent McLean from leaving the state with Takoda, citing abuse allegations. But in October 2014, the court ruled in favor of McLean, saying Collins had not proven her case. The judge agreed to let McLean move to Pennsylvania with Hines and take Takoda with them. Only the couple ended up here in Dayton. Montgomery County property records reviewed by the I-Team and the Dayton Daily News show Hines bought the home here on Kensington Avenue about a month after that Wisconsin court case. McLean's name is not tied to the house on public county records. In fact, Wisconsin records show the court still thought McLean lived in Wisconsin. By the time Takoda died, at least half a dozen Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Ohio agencies were supposed to have played a role in protecting his well-being. Our joint investigation uncovered concerns those organizations not talking to each other may have led to a cumulative system failure. Here's where we started to notice a pattern in our search for answers. When we asked how the calls to help Takoda were followed up on, multiple agencies often told us privacy laws prevented them from answering. Dayton Public Schools Superintendent Elizabeth Lally would not provide records to back up her claim staff reported abuse and neglect at least 15 times. Citing privacy laws, the district refused to answer what and when teachers reported. Children's Services also cited privacy laws when the I-Team asked how the agency followed up to the 2016 and 2018 police calls. A Kettering Health Network spokesperson tells the I-Team and Dayton Daily News there was never a record Takoda was brought there, as McLean and Hines told police. Dayton Police Chief Richard Beal declined an on-camera interview, but in a statement said there are, quote, undoubtedly possibilities for improved communication. Beal went on to say it is not clear whether police officers are routinely made aware of any open Montgomery County Children's Services cases when they're dispatched to reports of neglect or abuse.
I'm hopeful that this terrible tragedy opens that up so we can start to share information across these different groups. You know, I don't think Dayton Police obviously did everything they could in their purview, but now the question needs to be broader. What can county and city do to connect to really make sure that something like this never happens again?
Dayton Mayor Nan Whaley went on to tell the I-Team last week that she thinks accountability for the lack of interagency communication will be key as she waits to see the results of an internal investigation. That lack of communication has emerged as our teams continue to dig into the death of Takoda Collins. State Representative Phil Plummer wants an independent review of every agency involved in this case.
We're not pointing fingers at any organization, but let's just do a serious debriefing of this, an investigation, and see where the ball was dropped. And let's not drop the ball again.
Which brings us back to Robin Collins and her claim that that's exactly what happened. When records show Wisconsin telling her she needed to contact Ohio authorities for help, she did multiple times. But there are no documented indications her calls for help were ever communicated between multiple agencies.
All of this stuff that happened that failed him, this stuff needs to be fixed, or another child is going to lose their life because of it.
Now, after previous calls for change, after critical mistakes led to child abuse deaths like Michaela Norman and Braden Ferguson, Robin Collins is a mom once again echoing a plea for action. For this joint I-Team Dayton Daily News investigation, I'm John Bedell, News Center 7.